The Beatles are regarded as the most influential rock band of all time. Formed in Liverpool in 1960, the group consisted of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr. Over the next decade, the Beatles transformed pop music, reshaping the scope of songwriting and studio recording techniques. They also spearheaded the mid-1960s British invasion of the US music charts and brought the counterculture era to worldwide recognition. The Beatles began as a skiffle group called the Quarrymen, founded by John Lennon in 1956. Paul McCartney joined the group in 1957, and George Harrison became a member in early 1958. The band went through several lineup changes over the next 2 years before McCartney suggested changing the group's name to the Beatles in 1960, inspired by Buddy Holly's Crickets. Ringo Starr joined the Beatles in 1962, replacing original drummer Pete Best. The band signed with EMI Records that same year and soon became one of the most popular acts in the UK, scoring a string of #1 singles. Their famous mop-top haircuts and stage outfits became iconic symbols of the 1960s era. By 1964, the Beatles had taken the US by storm with record-breaking success. They set the standard for international pop stardom, fusing British rock with early American influences like rockabilly and country music. The Beatles' songwriting matured dramatically as they began composing albums instead of singles. 1966's Revolver incorporated psychedelic influences and marked a turning point in rock music history. The band's 1967 album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is widely considered a landmark work that redefined the possibilities of pop music. They also made the controversial film Magical Mystery Tour that same year. The Beatles' creative peak coincided with rising internal tensions and struggles. Increasing differences between members threatened their stability, particularly in the deteriorating partnership between Lennon and McCartney. The group nearly fell apart during the tumultuous making of their 1968 double album The Beatles, later referred to as the White Album. They then retreated to India for transcendental meditation lessons with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. In 1969, the Beatles released Abbey Road, considered their last great album, though Let It Be followed soon after. Abbey Road featured innovative cover art and several huge hits like Come Together and Here Comes the Sun. Internal conflicts worsened despite their ongoing musical success, and in April 1970, Paul McCartney publicly announced that he left the band. The remaining Beatles soon officially disbanded. The Beatles' many cultural impacts remain immeasurable. They moved rock music away from simple pop formulas into new territory of lengthy albums, complex song structures and creative studio experimentation. Their melodic yet emotionally sophisticated songs reshaped what was possible within rock and pop genres. Their signature sound of close vocal harmonies, ringing guitars and rich instrumental textures defined an era and influenced generations of musicians. Beyond music, the Beatles came to symbolize the shifts in social and political attitudes that defined the 60s. They came to represent widespread desires for peace, love, spiritual awareness and social change. Their modern aesthetic, from long hair to psychedelic clothing, radically altered fashion and youth culture. Innovative music videos and 1966's live global broadcast of their last concert also helped define the medium of music television. The Beatles continue to exert broad social and cultural influence to this day. John Lennon and Paul McCartney forged one of history's most legendary songwriting partnerships, with 25 of their songs reaching the top 10 in the US. George Harrison evolved into a highly skilled guitarist and composer in his own right. Ringo Starr's understated drumming style became integral to the band's signature sound. Despite their eventual breakup, the Beatles remain the best-selling musical act of all time. Their timeless music continues to inspire new generations of musicians and fans worldwide, ensuring their legacy as pioneers who forever transformed the art of popular song. The Beatles began honing their craft in the late 1950s in Liverpool's Merseybeat scene. They played extended residencies at local clubs like the legendary Cavern Club, where their popularity rapidly grew. The band developed a distinctive sound built around John Lennon and Paul McCartney's harmonized lead vocals. George Harrison emerged as a versatile guitarist who spanned rock and roll, blues and Indian music. Ringo Starr's steady, understated drumming supplied a strong rhythmic foundation for the group. The Beatles' early singles showed Lennon and McCartney's talent for writing catchy pop songs with memorable hooks and vocal harmonies. Hits like Love Me Do, Please Please Me and She Loves You helped establish them as Britain's top band by 1963. The group's cheeky senses of humor and distinctive personalities also made them media favorites. Their first 3 albums, Please Please Me, 1963, With the Beatles, 1963, and A Hard Day's Night, 1964, showcased an evolving pop songcraft informed by American rock and roll and R&B. The Beatles arrived in the US in February 1964 and instantly sparked Beatlemania. Their iconic appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show that month brought unprecedented television viewership and launched their commercial and cultural breakthrough in America. The band's American success coincided with the rise of the British invasion, with groups like the Rolling Stones, The Who and more following the path the Beatles blazed across the Atlantic. The Beatles' 1964 to 1966 albums demonstrated a new level of musical and lyrical maturity. Beatles for Sale, 1964, explored folk rock, while Help, 1965, incorporated pop psychedelia. These albums built anticipation for 1966's Rubber Soul, an artistic statement that expanded the scope of rock lyrics with themes of love, spirituality and introspection. The album's sophisticated pop textures drew from folk, R&B, jazz and Indian music and featured George Harrison's first major compositions. The Beatles released Revolver in August 1966, an album widely regarded as their creative peak. Innovative studio techniques, unusual instrumentation and an avant-garde pop aesthetic combined with sophisticated songwriting made Revolver hugely influential. Songs like Eleanor Rigby, For No One and Tomorrow Never Knows cemented the Beatles' standing as the most revolutionary force in pop music. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band followed in 1967 and pushed musical boundaries even further. Eclectic sonic experiments, extended song structures and an overarching pop concept elevated the album into the realm of high art. Singles like Penny Lane, All You Need Is Love and Hello Goodbye also placed the Beatles at the vanguard of the counterculture era. That same period saw tensions intensify between band members, impacting their creative process. The Beatles' experimental phase culminated in the sprawling double album The Beatles, 1968, which captured both the band's creative heights and internal struggles. Hit singles like Hey Jude and Get Back coexisted alongside complex avant-garde songs and solo pieces. The Beatles then traveled to India in 1968 to study transcendental meditation with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, but the trip ended bitterly. The Beatles reunited in 1969 to record their final works, Abbey Road and Let It Be. Despite optimism, interpersonal tensions surfaced again and marked the end of the Beatles era. The album Let It Be was released after the band broke up, and its studio recordings unveiled an exhausted band struggling to create together. McCartney's announcement of his departure from the band soon followed, effectively dissolving the greatest rock group of all time. However, the Beatles' indelible legacy of innovating within rock, pop and countless other genres ensures their music will continue inspiring new listeners for generations to come. Through catchy melodies, deeply human lyrics and boundary-pushing experimentation, the Beatles shaped popular music into an art form that mirrored life's infinite mysteries. As John Lennon once said, "The Beatles will go on forever, long after all of us are dead." His words ring as true today as ever. Here are some of the Beatles' most popular songs. Yesterday, written by Paul McCartney, this wistful ballad about lost love is one of the most covered songs of all time. It has over 2,200 recorded covers and is considered one of the greatest songs of the 20th century. Let It Be, written by Paul McCartney, this gospel-infused rock ballad became an anthem of peace and hope during the turbulent late 1960s. The song's message of turning to faith in difficult times still resonates deeply today. Hey Jude, written by Paul McCartney for John Lennon's son Julian, this 7-minute epic eventually became the best-selling Beatles single. The emotive lyrics and refrain of the title drew upon McCartney's skill for crafting sing-along anthems. Come Together, written by John Lennon, this song features a bass line inspired by Chuck Berry's You Can't Catch Me and cryptic lyrics that some interpreted as referencing American politics. The track remains one of Lennon's signature solo compositions. A Day in the Life, a John Lennon and Paul McCartney co-write, this psychedelic epic marked the apex of the Beatles' experimental period. The haunting orchestral build and musical breakdowns pushed pop music into new conceptual and sonic territory. Hey Jude, written by Paul McCartney to comfort Julian Lennon, this 7-minute rock ballad is regarded as one of McCartney's greatest compositions. The lyrics convey a message of comfort and strength through difficult times. The song's extended vocal coda became a studio trademark for the band. Let It Be, possibly the Beatles' greatest song of spiritual inspiration and comfort, Let It Be has become an iconic anthem of faith, hope and human connection. Written by Paul McCartney at a time of crisis for the band, its message of turning to faith in times of difficulty still profoundly resonates today. Those are just some of the most popular and critically acclaimed songs from the Beatles' extensive catalog, spanning rock, pop, folk and beyond. Their music continues to deeply touch listeners with messages of love, spirituality, humanity and hope.